What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. And sorry we didn't get a chance to do our show at the regular time yesterday. Justin and I actually were both from Michigan, and we were both in transit yesterday, so it just got a little bit tricky. But we are back today with our regular weekly show, and we'll be hopefully back on Friday too. I need to check with Justin. I'm planning to still be in Michigan on Friday, so hopefully we can do it at a regularly scheduled time, but we'll keep you guys posted. But anyways, happy Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners. And I know we have people that are from France and from other places in Europe. So we are celebrating Thanksgiving, which really is just an excuse for families to get together and have some big meals. It's a lot of fun. It's my favorite holiday. Is it your favorite holiday or no?
Halloween, man. Halloween's my favorite
Oh, yeah.
holiday.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Halloween's dope too. But man, I love Thanksgiving because it's basically built around eating, sleeping, and just like doing nothing, taking the complete day off. So I
If
really like
anybody
that.
knows
And
you, you don't do that ever, man.
I never do that. So it's huge for me. Also, this year, and I generally don't care that much, but I love Detroit and I love Michigan and I want to support Michigan. And for the first time in God knows how long, the Lions, the Detroit Lions, which is our football team, and they always play on Thanksgiving. It's like tradition. So if you're from Michigan, you have a lot of pride about that. Every Thanksgiving, the Lions always play. And so I will always watch the Lions game on Thanksgiving. I normally don't watch many Lions games. And I hate to be a fair weather fan, not like I'm jumping so much on the bandwagon, but it is kind of cool because Justin, what's going on with the Lions this year?
They're 10-1. They've won 8 games in a row. First time they're 10-1 in 90 years. They've lost on the Thanksgiving game the last 7 years in a row. Unfortunately, we're battling a lot of injuries right now against a pretty tough Bears team. Although their record is 4-7, they've lost like 6 games in the last. Like they just lost a couple days ago in overtime. So I mean it's a tough team, and we're battling a lot of injuries, so it should be an action-packed game. Oh, from a betting line, Lions are a favorite by 10 points. I'll take the money line for the Bears. I still think the Lions are going to win, but I think the game's going to be a lot closer than the betting line is giving it credit for, especially with all the injuries we have. Take the Bears at +10 or +11.
Wow. Okay. You're not going, are you?
Mm, it's undecided. I might. I've went the last couple of years in a row. It's fucking wild. It's a huge, insane party. But it's very expensive this year just because of how good they're doing. I used to be able to go for take my son, both of us for 200-300 bucks. Now, like the cheapest ticket I can find is 400 each. So,
Oh my God.
I mean, if I go out and smash some poker tonight, maybe, but we'll see.
Look who it is. Celine came on. What's up, Celine? Thank you
Cheers.
for joining, even though this is not a regularly scheduled time. We need to be better about this too, in terms of like announcing to all of our regulars, like Celine, hey, we're doing the show tomorrow. So sorry, we are trying to get better and more efficient at everything we do, especially as our subscriber base is growing. We're also almost at 500 subscribers, which is really, really cool. So we're really having a lot of fun. And but without further ado, let's jump into some stuff now. I didn't have this one topic on the list, but I do think we should talk about it because Justin said something about it before the show began. Let me just type in the banner. So let's do it. It's a really dicey subject. It's something that like I'm not super comfortable getting into the weeds just yet without okay, so let me tell you guys what I was planning to do and then what I opted out of doing last night just because I was super tired because I traveled all day. Maybe I'll do this Friday. If you guys want me to, I can. So a couple of things about me that maybe you guys don't know. It's funny because a lot of people are trying to do legal analysis or like understand what's happening in the case, but they always preface it with, hey, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm just doing my best, whatever. I actually am an attorney. So for those of you guys who don't know, I graduated from law school back in 2009. And I practiced law for 4 years as a patent attorney. And then I left law to start my own business. So I'm like an education entrepreneur, you could say, but I did go to law school. I did take the bar. I did practice for 4 years. Now, I am not a criminal, was never a criminal attorney. Again, I was a patent attorney, which deals with like technology. It's a very nuanced type of law, but I do have some baseline reasonable understanding of case law still to this day. And I probably would be able to dive into the materials and give a pretty decent analysis based on my understanding of what I've read. But anyways, my point is I haven't done the thorough analysis yet. I haven't gone through the case history and looked at all the facts on file and really given my thorough opinion. I can do that. I will still preface it, and we can talk about it today. I still will preface it that while I am an attorney, don't take this as an actual bona fide legal opinion, because again, this is out of my area of expertise, and I haven't practiced law officially in any like official capacity in like a really long time, in over 10 years. So anyways, just throwing that out there. But Justin, let's talk. You mentioned something previously before we got on the air, and you can mention names. You don't have to mention names. You can say like, hey, what kind of people are discussing around the gym and whatnot, because this is a big issue in the world of mixed martial arts and the UFC in particular. But yeah, what have you been hearing?
I
And
tell you what, man, jump on Twitter right now. A lot of guys are coming out posting the video that we watched of that girl crying, saying she's faking. A lot of guys that I, really respect their opinion. Again, I'm not going to name any names, but guys, jump on Twitter right now. You can see all these guys, all these, high level, high guys in the UFC, man. Really, again, credited people saying that they think it's fake, saying that they're taking, Conor McGregor's going through a hard time right now, and they're trying to almost feed on his negative energy, saying like, hey, look, he has so many things going wrong, or he's making so many mistakes right now. This is just one thing we can add into the fire that people will think is legit because of how he's spiraling right now, and they're trying to take advantage of a situation that isn't necessarily true, just because of, again, how hard he's spiraling right now, in spiraling. I can't even talk, in his life right now, that people automatically are going to assume anything negative, related to Conor is going to be true.
It is. So I was on MMA Joey's channel a few days ago, and I was asking him his thoughts on this whole thing, because it has been driving me crazy. Like, I do not like cases like this where there's so much doubt, meaning there's so many inconsistencies in the story. There's so many ways that it could have happened. There's two different sides to the story. There's no real concrete actual evidence, right? It's primarily circumstantial, and it just gives me a lot of anxiety. I don't like it. Now, there's people that have very, very strong opinions on both sides of the fence. I don't particularly, because I'm still trying to do my exploration. In fact, I don't think I'll ever have a strong opinion one way or the other. I don't think it's possible to get a really, really strong opinion, because there's too many unknowns. Unless you really know Conor or you really know Nikita Han, then I suppose from that perspective, you would have a much better feel, or much better idea, because I think this really comes down in a lot of ways to just the individual credibility of each person. But I'll tell you this, okay? So there's particular people on YouTube that are really strong supporters of Conor, like Jesse on Fire, who's our boy, right? We love Jesse. He's a really good dude. I know he may be controversial. Some people might consider him controversial. He's a little bit outspoken, this and that. But I'll tell you this: we know Jesse, and he's a good guy. He's trying to do the right thing, and he's trying to do his best to give a fair and balanced review of this entire case. So you have another guy, RP MMA, I think is his channel. He is on the side of Conor. He's been covering this case from the very beginning. He's also very interesting because he's based in Ireland. So he's been following along from the get-go. He's been giving details of this, because remember, you mentioned that this case is happening when Conor is really in a vulnerable spot. A lot of things are happening. He's spiraling out of control. But don't forget, this case began back in 2018. It's 6 years old. So it began a long time ago. I mean, things were still a little bit crazy in Conor's life back then, but not like how they are now. So just letting you know that that's the beginnings of it. But he's been pretty consistently saying from the beginning, covering everything step by step, that he thinks her story is suspect. So again, I don't know myself, but there are inconsistencies, and there are issues that are problematic. One of the things is that, okay, again, I need to do a deep dive into the facts, so I truly apologize in advance if I'm getting any little minuscule detail wrong, because I don't want to get any. It's very important not to get any details wrong in a case or any case really. But I'm just going to talk as generally as possible and as accurately as possible. The main thing is, like, when there's the CCTV footage, that's a problem, right? Potentially, because we see her after the incident took place, kind of cuddling up with Conor and cuddling up with the other guy, kissing them on the arm. Behavior that seems perplexing. Now, I have heard from a legal expert on the other side that was interviewed by Pete C. Carroll. Like, I've been listening to a lot of this stuff over the weekend, that said, and this makes a lot of sense to me too. So I just want to put this out as food for thought. The reaction that we sometimes imagine would be the sensible reaction in a high stress situation like this is not the reaction that we get. Let me give you an example. When I was in law school, one of the things that I worked on in my third year of law school at the Center on Wrongful Convictions is something called false confessions. Are you familiar with false confessions?
No, I'm not. And by the
Okay,
way, before we go any further, I have no opinion on it. I'm not saying he did it or didn't do it.
for sure.
So just if it sounds like I was biased,
No, no.
okay, no, just when I said like, people are saying like I don't have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
So I just want the viewers to know that like I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I don't know enough about the topic or the legalities of what's happening to have an opinion on it. So I just want to make that clear.
100%. And I'm not by the way, also, I just want to let people know it's not that I'm afraid to give an opinion because I'm afraid one way or the other. I just want to give an opinion that is very, very carefully thought out. The problem with giving an opinion too early on is it's just not really fair. It's not really fair to Conor or to Nikita. And that would be incorrect. But I'm happy to give an opinion once I've done a thorough deep dive, which I have not done yet. But anyway, so let me tell you about like when we think about false confessions, you think like, what is a false confession? A false confession is confessing to a crime that you did not commit. So you think that's insane. Anybody that would watch, if you remember Making a Murderer, right? That was a pretty popular series on Netflix. I worked on that case in law school. Totally, I did no idea. I didn't even know they were making a documentary about it. When I saw the documentary, I'm like, oh my God, this is the case that I worked on for a year. We worked on the Brendan Dassey side of that case. But anyways, Brendan Dassey was a young kid who went in and got interrogated by police about a homicide of a woman, and they basically kept him there for hours upon hours, and he eventually confessed to the entire thing. Any normal person looks at that and says, well, obviously he confessed. We have it on tape of him saying, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it, blah, blah, blah. So of course he's guilty. No questions asked. Case closed, done. In fact, we were almost absolutely positive that he was innocent if you really looked at the case, at the history of the case, and if you look at Brendan Dassey, and if you look at what he went through, and he was a kid, he was 15, and he was under this intense interrogation, and you can actually, people break in interrogations, especially if you don't know what's going on, you don't have legal representation, which he didn't, and he eventually confessed this whole thing. Sadly, he's still in. It's horrible. It's a horrible story. He's still in prison. He almost got out on appeal, but then it was overturned at the last level of appeal by the Illinois Supreme Court. Super sad. He's going to be in prison until he's like 44. But anyways, so my point is that sometimes things aren't always as they appear. So when you're in a high stress situation, sometimes you just do things just to survive. And this is the point that this gentleman made, is that when she was kind of like cuddling up to them after the incident, that may seem bizarre, perplexing, and nonsensical. It's like, dude, she's probably lying, because if she just went through this traumatic experience, why is she doing that? But again, sometimes people they don't act the way that you would imagine, like we see in movies, like them running and screaming down the hall, like call the police, like, oh no, like she might have been in survival mode. So just take that with a grain of salt, that behavior. But I think that's a big point of contention, is the CCTV footage conflicting with what we would imagine her reaction would be under that high stress situation. But that's one of the issues that people have brought up. Another issue is that none of her friends testified on her behalf. She had friends in the hotel room. None of them heard anything. None of them said anything. Now, to give a counter argument to that, maybe there was witness intimidation. And the only reason why I bring that up is because there has been like clear cases of, we can't link it back to Conor, but likely cases of witness intimidation that occurred in this case, where the masked men went into her house with balaclavas with masks on and stabbed her partner at the time. He eventually left her after that. But he was attacked. They had to move. They had to relocate. She was also asking for relocation money in the case. And then there
Bro,
was
like,
yeah, go ahead.
imagine that. Like, you find out your girlfriend cheated on you, and then guys come to your house and stab you. Like, I think it's time to get out of that situation. That's fucking wild, dude. Like,
Yeah, like, and I mean, he did break up with her, and again, it doesn't necessarily, for sure, it doesn't necessarily mean he thought she was lying or she was lying, right? Like, that also can be a high stress situation that I think people don't understand. Like, because I've dealt with this to a small amount, but like when you feel like you're constantly being watched, I mean, this is a whole nother level than what I've dealt with, by the way. But like when you feel like there's potentially an organized crime outfit that's out to get you, they're watching you, they're monitoring you, they came in, they nearly killed you, they stabbed you, yo, even if you believe your girl and like whatever, it's just be like, yo, I feel like you created this situation somehow by, maybe he blamed her, who knows, maybe he believed her, but he still blamed her. He's like, I'm out, I can't deal with this, I can't die, I want to live. That's it. So it could be as simple as that. But anyways, there was another woman who was pushed off the boat, and she was trying to file legal action against Conor McGregor, and her car was like bombed. It's crazy, right? So there could be these cases of witness intimidation that are occurring, that is like causing maybe her friends not to come up, I lost my train of thought now, I just remembered, that caused her friend not to step up, not to testify. Maybe they were afraid that they would be harmed or injured, or maybe there was explicit threats, right? So there are potential explanations. That's why this case is so confusing, because you would think, why are her friends not stepping up? Maybe they were intimidated, I don't know, right? And then we also have sort of like the bizarre things of her amnesia and her lack of memory. I can see that, though, under a high stress situation, she could have forgotten things, but that's also another potential like weird issue where she didn't remember the CCTV footage. Like when they were showing it to her, she didn't remember. I think they didn't even say that his friend had sex with her, and then she brought that up, and then she tried to file something against him. He came out innocent. They not civilly liable. Let's put it like that. The last thing I'll say is a nuance that I had missed earlier on. I thought that this was I thought he was found civilly liable for rape or sexual assault, at least. That is incorrect. He was found civilly liable, not for even sexual assault. I'm going to double check this right now because I don't want to get this wrong. I believe he was found civilly liable for assault. Okay. So hold on. Let me double check this. Conor McGregor, civilly liable. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Civil find. Oh no, it does say in the headline sexual assault. I don't know. I heard other people saying no, it's not sexual assault, it's assault. No, I think it is sexual assault. Because I just looked it up and that came up on every headline. But anyways, so again, the other issues, and just to clarify, because the same thing in courts in Ireland as it is here, the evidentiary standards are lower for a civil case when you're trying to get monetary damages. So it's just a preponderance of the evidence, meaning, which is still a big deal, right? Meaning it's more likely than not that this happened. So that's what the jury said. And again, the jury heard, we also want to give credit to the jury. I know that there's a lot of bias against Conor McGregor in Ireland. Could that have fed into this? I don't know. Again, that's another weird thing, right? Did people have an inherent bias against Conor McGregor? Did the fact that there was 7 women and 5 men on the jury give them, contribute to the bias? I don't know, right? It's a small difference. But again, if you've ever been on a case or been on a jury before, there's a discussion. You're all discussing the evidence, discussing the facts. So it's not like the women just run the show, and who's to say even that the women had the bias? Maybe the men had the bias, right? We're making a lot of assumptions here. But these are all questions that we're wondering, hey, he is pretty hated in Ireland. Did that contribute to this? Whatever it may be. Hold on, we got a couple of comments here. Let's read this. So, why is sexual Western Mass Climber? Assault. Why is sexual assault a civil case? Oh, okay. So Western Mass Climber asks, like, hey, why is this a civil case? Well, typically it is a criminal act, right? Sexual assault is a criminal act, but it's the same thing in the U.S. If you remember the O.J. Simpson civil trial that happened, right? Murder is obviously a criminal matter, but the family lost the criminal case, and so they brought a civil case and they won that to just have some justice and to get monetary damages, etc. So because it's a lower evidentiary standard, so it's easier to win a civil case than it is a criminal case. In this particular instance, Nikita Hand tried to file criminal charges. She went and tried to file criminal charges, and they said they didn't have enough evidence. They didn't feel like the case would be strong enough. So a lot of times that decision is up to both the police and the district attorney. I think they call it a solicitor in Ireland, but up to the district attorney. And if they feel that they don't have enough evidence to bring the case, the charges aren't going to stick. They'll oftentimes not pursue those charges. And I think that's what happened here. which kind of makes sense because it's all circumstantial. There really isn't a ton of evidence. I mean, it's really, do you believe her over him? Now you mentioned something about that interview of Nikita Hand where she's crying, and you said that you felt like people thought that there she was being inauthentic, or perhaps maybe putting out show.
That's just what I've read. It's not
That's
that
what you read.
I don't feel that way,
No,
but
no, for
I
sure.
had, yeah, 2 or 3 people came out on Twitter this morning and they say, look at this, like this doesn't add up. This looks almost staged,
Really?
or yeah. And again, I can find those screenshots and send them to you of the people that is staging that are saying this. You know, being in a high stress situation, man. 6 years later, I don't know, man. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm not sympathetic, but when you've had 6 years to digest this and you're still crying, I mean, I couldn't imagine. I don't know, man. I guess, I don't know. When I'm put in a high stress situation, I could be really emotional right away. But 6 years later, I mean, I think I've thought about it so many times. I've replayed it so many times that, and again, I'm not saying it's not authentic, but me in a personal sense, 6 years later, I still wouldn't be emotional about it, I guess, per se, because I've already talked about it. I went over it time and time again, 1,000 times, and then to come out and be that emotional 6 years later, again, not saying it's inauthentic by any means, but I know that personally, I would be handling it much differently.
That's fair. Okay, let me give a counter argument to that, because okay, so I can actually understand. I think I can understand to some extent, because I can totally see her getting emotional at this point, because for 6 years, imagine this, she's gone through it, she's dealt with so much, she's had to move, she lost her fiance, her boyfriend, then she got, you know, she is now, I think, dating somebody else, but she had to go through this traumatic event. She probably has had tons of threats, and the biggest thing is she's had people not believe her. I think she's constantly faced while she's had supporters, probably had a lot of people that have not believed her, and I can kind of understand what that feels like with stuff that I've gone through in my life, legally, specifically, you know what I'm talking about. But basically, to finally get justice, to finally get vindication, right? When the situation that I was dealing with finally went down and there was an arrest made, the first time I broke down in tears, even though it had been going on, you know, the situation for over a year. I broke down crying, because it's like, oh my God, finally somebody's listening to me. Finally, somebody's taking this seriously. I imagine that's only a fraction of what she felt. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I will say this: when I actually watched that footage of her crying and talking, that rang true to me. And that's just on a internal level. I do feel like I have a pretty good sense of people in terms of when they're being honest or dishonest. But I think a lot of us do, and I think a lot of us think we do, and I think a lot of us actually do. I think we can generally have a pretty good sense of when people are lying, unless they're like pure psychopaths and like amazing liars. Maybe then it's a little bit hard to tell. But that felt authentic to me, at least that instant. But anyways, if this is interesting to you guys, you know what? Not even forget about that. I need to do a deep dive. I should throw my hat in the ring and do a deep dive, because like me compared to like Ariel Helwani or Pete Carroll or these other guys, like the difference is I do have a legal background. Again, not in criminal law, but I think that would make sense. I'm happy to do it. I'll take the time this week as I have some downtime, and I'll really get into the weeds. But yeah, it is a hot topic. I'll say this too, man. If this didn't go down the way that she said, it's just so. In either case, it's just so sad. Like, Conor has a lot of problems, and we know that, you know, and he very well may be kind of a bad guy, you know, in terms of like everything he does. Just even if you think about it in terms of the infidelity, obviously there's a massive, massive difference in terms of being, you know, especially too, we don't know the agreement that he has with D, by the way. This may not be just like cheating out of the blue and him being dishonest. They may have an arrangement where it's like, look, like I think that this can be commonplace with a lot of superstar athletes, where it's just like, look, I can't be married because I have like 20 women coming at me every day. Like, I can't fight that temptation. It's just I don't have it in me, but I want to be with you. I want to have a family with you. I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your life. Like, we've seen this with other athletes and other superstars, people in high positions of power. They're like, all right, I'm happy with this. I get that you get so much attention, but as long as I'm number one, I'll take it, right? Or we have open relationships, open marriages. So we don't even know if the infidelity thing is a major issue in their relationship or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm sure to be put on public spotlight, it's not pleasant for D. Devlin, but behind closed doors, it may not even be an issue. But anyways, if this truly did not happen, man, like, is there anything worse than being called, and let's not say the R word because YouTube doesn't like it, but is there anything worse than having this label? I don't think there is. Maybe there's one label worse, which we both know of, which I don't want to mention either. But like, it's pretty much the second worst thing you could be called on this planet in this, in our society today. So if it is not happening,
I mean,
it's horrible tragedy. Yeah, go ahead.
Child.
Yeah. But let's not even say it. Yeah.
Sure.
But that's the one.
I was just curious what you were thinking. But
that's the one. Yeah.
This is a touchy subject for me, man. And when I was in college, my best friend had this kind of allegation on him, and like unreal, like the same thing. Girl at the police station crying, saying, this happened and this happened. When I was with him the night before, that shit didn't happen. And he had to go and and give a statement to the police. And the only reason he got off was because the second time the girl went in there to tell her story, it was different from the first time. Besides that, people were calling him this. He was going to court. He was facing, prison time for this. And so when it comes, and like I said, just like in this situation, the girl was crying and, oh my God, this is what happened. And he was just like, holy shit. Like I remember it like it was yesterday because I talked to him on the phone so much about it. And fortunately, there was another girl in the situation that testified on his behalf, said that it was false. And then the second time the girl went and told her story, it wasn't the same as the first. So unfortunately, given the situation, he was getting off. So in these circumstances, man, I'm usually very partial to, like, hey man, let's not call anybody anything until the facts come out, because I mean, man, like I'll never forget. This is 15 years ago, and I remember the emotional trauma my buddy went through and how emotional he was. I mean, he thought his life was over. He thought he was going to lose his college scholarship. He was a Division I athlete. Thought he was going to lose his scholarship, and he almost did. He almost went to prison. And fortunately, it didn't work out that way. But man, I just remember like this chick and how much she was lying, and like it just blows my mind. So when I hear things like this, man, it brings all those emotions back up that I wasn't even involved in the situation, but to see him to go through what he had to go through was traumatic.
God, yeah, and apparently this is again secondhand information that I've heard from RP MMA, Jesse on Fire, etc. Is that I think apparently there are inconsistencies in her story. Like her story did change, which can be the main thing is this, right? When you're again, I haven't done a deep dive yet, so people don't get mad at me here because I'm just telling you in a general standpoint. When you're fabricating a story, where you're coming up with a story, I am a massive fan of like true crime documentary. I don't watch much true crime anymore. Actually, I stopped because I felt like it was too much negative energy. Like seeing all these murder cases is just depressing after a while. But it's like when you fabricate a story and you go in and you go into an interrogation, the police will have you stay there for like 6, 8, 10 hours. Why? Because they'll ask the same questions over and over. Okay, wait, tell us again. So wait, how did this happen that night? They do this intentionally. And a lot of times the people will be like, wait, didn't you already ask me that? Yeah, but just tell us one more time. Because when you fabricate a story, you have to remember all the details and things that you added in. And it's very difficult to keep everything straight unless you have it perfectly down. So you're going to make little changes. And that's what they're looking for. Versus the truth is easy. The truth is simple. You could probably tell a truthful story, something that really happened 10 times in a row with no variations. So the inconsistencies are very important. Again, I'll do a deep dive this week and let me really get into the weeds and let me give you my true honest opinion, and we'll take it from there. But like I said, we want to hope that the right decision was made. The thing that leans me in favor of the right decision being made is that this was a long trial. This was a long, like, if you've never sat jury duty before, you go into the weeds. You hear both sides, left, right, the prosecution, the defense, well, not prosecution here because it's a civil case, but you know what I'm saying. The plaintiff, the defense, you're going to hear cross-examinations. They're really going to hammer the witnesses. I don't know for sure if Nikita Hand went on the stand, but I assume she did. I heard that Conor went on the stand. Again, all that stuff was private, so reporters weren't allowed in. But they're really getting a deep dive into all the facts. And so if they did feel that way strongly, that gives me a vote of confidence. Again, the thing weighing against that is, was there inherent biases because he's so hated in Ireland? I don't know. But again, that's where it is, and that's where we'll leave it. But you're saying, Justin, in general, from what you're seeing in Twitter, on Twitter with a lot of fighters, you're feeling like some support for Conor is what
Yeah,
you're.
I wouldn't say it's more or less. I'd say it's still 50-50. When it came out, I didn't see any support for Conor. I saw everyone calling him a piece of shit and this and that, and what we don't want to talk about. But then this morning, when I was waiting to get on the show, like so a lot of times, with 30 minutes before our show gets on, I'll jump on Twitter and see what everyone's talking about, because a lot of times we're talking about the hottest topics. So a lot of
Yes.
times I can see opinions from other people, whether it's fighters, whether it's controversy like this, or what it is. I get on to try and get perspective. And I saw 3, 4, 5, maybe even a half dozen of not just fighters, but people involved in the fight world that are involved in the UFC. Like I said, not even just fighters. Coming out to support Conor McGregor. And if you guys get on Twitter, you'll be able to see this. A lot of people are resharing that video, calling her a liar, saying it's fake, saying it's staged, saying it's rehearsed.
Hmm.
And again, I want to reiterate also is I don't have an opinion about it. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just repeating what other people are saying.
Yeah. For sure. Apparently, also one other fact is that when she came home that night, her boyfriend recorded her conversation, or like recounting of all the incidents and everything like that. Which is kind of weird that
That's
he
really
recorded.
weird, man.
Yeah,
Really
it's
weird.
really
Yeah.
weird. I don't know. Somebody was saying that they think maybe I don't know. Now we're getting into theoretical stuff, so I don't want to comment too much. But she did have a lot of bruising, and she had a lot of damage done to her, especially just a lot of like details I won't necessarily go into. But she did have a lot of damage to her, so something happened. Was it Conor? Was it something after Conor that happened? And then I don't know, right? So these are the questions, and these are the God, it's very tricky and very dicey. Another thing I'd be curious to know is if any of those, but maybe you couldn't see it yet, or maybe the bruising hadn't kind of like come out, I guess, at this point. But I would be curious to know what you could see from the CCTV. I imagine you couldn't see any of that because that I had never heard that mentioned. Anyways, well, that's where it's at. This is a topic that obviously you can tell both of us are a little uncomfortable to talk about, because it's a tricky topic. It's a very, it could be a very divisive issue. And again, it's we need more information. So I'm gonna try and do that. I'm gonna get more information, do my due diligence. We can talk about it more intelligibly, perhaps Friday or next week. All right, let's get into some MMA stuff here. So Rampage Jackson, if you're familiar with the old school days, he's had a long-standing relationship and history with Ariel Helwani, former champ, fought Jon Jones way back in the day. He was on the Ariel Helwani show on Monday yesterday, and he had a really interesting interview. And I thought it was pretty cool that Rampage Jackson, somebody who's fought Jon Jones, you tell me your opinion on this, who's fought Jon Jones, he says, I've seen Aspinall fight, I've seen Stipe fight. He's like, man, he's like, in my opinion, with the skill set that Stipe brought, everybody thought Stipe was going to be faster than Jon Jones. He actually may have been in round 1, by the way, until he got that crazy ground and pound. But he's like, I actually thought that Stipe was a tougher challenge for Jon Jones than Tom Aspinall. What do you think about that?
I disagree, man. We're talking about a guy that hasn't fought in 4 years. He got knocked out brutally in his last fight. He didn't take his job. He didn't take his job off in training prep. I still am on the opinion that Stipe was there for a paycheck. Like I said, which tells me the biggest thing that tells me that he was just there for a paycheck is he didn't take his job off, man. He is a firefighter. That is a very physically straining job. That's a very emotionally straining job. You work for 48 hours, 72 hours straight at a time. So during that 48 to 72, I mean, I can't imagine him be training. When you're fighting the best fighter, arguably the greatest fighter in the history of ever, and you're not taking time off of your job to focus on the task at hand, it told me he didn't take it serious. And, again, coming off a 4 year layoff, 4 year hiatus, getting brutally knocked out by Francis Ngannou in his last fight, I thought he was just there to collect a check. And, his post fight interview said the same, man. He's so what's next for Stipe? I'm done. I'm like immediately. He didn't say, oh, we'll see how I feel in a couple days. I might be back. I might not. I'm done. I'm not doing this again. Like that tells me that he had already made his decision up before the fight that he was done. And he didn't bring, and I don't know, his whole demeanor during the fight And I mean, he took an ass whooping. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't look motivated walking to the cage. He didn't look motivated after round one, round two. Like you're in a 5 round fight, man. If you lose the first round, you have to try to get some of that motivation and come back, especially against someone like Jon Jones. And I just never saw that. He didn't even try. In my opinion, he didn't even try. It looked like he was there to survive the best he can, and he just was a punching bag until he wasn't.
Okay, so let me throw out a couple of other. See, but I think it's interesting because you see more from their expression, from their demeanor than I do, right? Because you've been in the mix and like, so I'm just kind of like hypothesizing to some extent. But I will say this: Stipe did say he doesn't want to fight unless he can fight for the belt. So he lost to Jones. He's not fighting for the belt. Why is he going to stick around? He probably knew right off the bat that if he lost, he was going to be out. Number one. Number two. I think you're saying like he didn't look motivated getting off the stool in round two or round three. There was no urgency. But remember, he took a insane ground and pound in round one, horrible ground and pound with some of the most vicious elbows on the ground I've ever seen. Like that's not super, super common where somebody's like leveling elbows with that much force in the ground and pound. I feel maybe we do see it. We do see it, but like usually people are posturing up with punches, and instead Jon was like raining down these like really heavy elbow. So I think Stipe was extremely I think he almost got finished. He did almost get finished.
You
So I
know,
think he was yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but and they were talking about the ground and pound. That was another thing. It's like Stipe had no urgency when he was getting his ass beat on the ground. In my opinion, again, I wasn't in there getting my ass beat by Jon Jones, but it just didn't look like he had any urgency to get up. It looked like once he was taken down, he was content laying on the back, taking the ground and pound, hoping to get to the next round. He didn't look like he was exerting any energy. He didn't have any explosive movements. He wasn't digging for his underhook, which is day one shit on how to get up from being down. It looked like once he was taken down, he's like, all right, well, there's 2 minutes left in the round. I'm just going to lay here and try to get out of this round and get to the next round instead of being explosive, giving up. Giving up almost position to try to get up on your feet. I just didn't see any urgency from Stipe throughout the whole fight.
Got you. Fair enough. Okay, so you do feel as though Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, that's going to be a much more difficult fight.
Regardless of its technique or not, whether Stipe is better than Tom Aspinall, Tom wants the fight. Tom wants to get in there. He wants to put a pace on Jon. He wants to try to win this belt. Stipe just didn't. And regardless if he's a better fighter or a worse fighter or not, when you have someone as big as Tom Aspinall, as skilled as Tom Aspinall, that wants to win, again, I don't think Stipe. I think Stipe. Let me give you my expression. Stipe
Mhm.
wanted to win, but Tom Aspinall wants to win. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep, yep.
Stipe didn't go in there, oh, I'm going to go lose this fight. No, of course, in his head, he wants to win, but Tom Aspinall is motivated. When you talk about someone's demeanors, I want this fight. I want to be the champion. I want to win. That's Tom Aspinall. You have Stipe, on the other hand, is like, I want to win. And you could tell by his performance. His performance was lackluster. I mean, there was bits and pieces to where it's like, oh shit, he threw a great 1-2 pop pop. But again, it's just it looked like he was just in there for a paycheck. When you have someone like Tom Aspinall that's hungry, that's motivated, that he's going to try to get after Jon, and even if that means opening up himself to put him in vulnerable situations, he's going to try to win the fight. Where on the other hand, Stipe, I thought was more conservative and just trying to get through the fight instead of actually trying to win the fight.
Fair enough. One last thing I'll say about Rampage Jackson, one thing that he pointed out, which other fans have pointed this out too. They're like, hey, Jon Jones is saying he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall because Tom Aspinall doesn't have a name. And what a hypocrite, because Jon Jones once upon a time didn't have a name and he was given a shot, just like every up-and-comer has to be given a shot. And he did make that point. He's like, hey, so Jon Jones should give him a shot. Like, it's only fair. Like, go on, go do your thing. Oh, by the way, I saw an interview of Randy Couture recently talking about this. I'll tell you what he said as well. Randy Couture, owner of Extreme Couture, where Justin trains. But anyways, so he did say that. I'll give one counter argument to that. I think it's a little different than Rampage fighting Jon Jones. Rampage was a champion and was a legend, but like it's not really the same. I mean, Jon Jones has had like 15 title defenses. This is a little different. He's been fighting up and comers for a long time. Dominic Reyes, Anthony Smith at the time was. I mean, dude, he's all been fighting all up and comers. It's not like back in the day he was like, no, I only want champs or like people who've had multiple title defenses. He was constantly doing that. I think he's earned his due. Like this is come on, right? Like what are people have lost their mind on this. Okay, this takes us to topic number 2. Again, Jon Jones. is now negotiating his next fight. Let me show you this article real quick. Very, very, very exciting. I was talking to one of my students about this today as well. What this could mean for the UFC and for pay-per-view sales and all this stuff. Jon Jones believes he will more than likely fight in the UFC in 2025. So he did an interview with the Schmo. So check this out. This is the section right here. So right now, the UFC and I were in negotiations. We're in talks to see what happens next. I'm back in the gym. I did tell you this, I think, on Monday or last Friday, because he did post a video of him back in the gym already, which is cool. I'm training. I feel really great. The team support, they're right behind me, and we'll just be ready for whatever opportunity comes our way. Very interesting. Very interesting. There is a dollar amount in mind, but I'm not going to discuss that publicly. We'll just have to wait and see. I will be competing in 2025 more than likely. I heard another figure. I can't remember what show it was. Oh, I think it was the Sugar Sean show, because I listen to like everything. They were saying that I think it was them. The figure was, the estimate is that Jon Jones made 16 million for his last fight. So for Tom Aspinall, is he talking 20s? I'm thinking he's thinking like 30 million. That's just what I think, because he's looking at boxing numbers and what some of these other, like what Jake Paul's making, and he himself, he's like, dude, I'm a way better athlete than these guys. So from that perspective, he probably wants something along those lines. Then Jones goes on to say, it's been awesome. Something feels different about this win. I feel like the whole world's really excited about it. I am really excited about it. I think a lot of people are. I think some people are being haters, but the UFC has elevated it to an even higher place, and I feel at the right place at the right time. I'm grateful for it all. Okay, so that's it. He's, intentionally, I think, not really going out of his way to say Tom Aspinall's name. But anyways, it looks like I said for the longest time he was not going to fight Tom Aspinall, because I thought the UFC didn't want it. I thought the UFC was pretending they wanted it, but they didn't want it. I think maybe the UFC has changed their mind because they realize this could be a big money fight, and they're willing to put Jon Jones's legacy, up to be potentially, a little bad mark on a loss at the end. I mean, they're doing it because I think they think it's just could be such a tremendous fight. I mean, what do you think? Do you think this is going to happen? And do you
Yeah, I
want it to
do.
happen? Yeah.
So here's the thing, like it goes to that excitement factor. Like if we talk about this matchup for 6 months to a year, and that excitement, that anticipation, it's gonna wear thin. If 6 months ago we're talking about this, and finally a year later it happens, that's great. But now when Jon Jones is saying this isn't gonna happen, this isn't gonna happen, this isn't gonna happen, this isn't gonna happen, all right, it's happening in 2 months. Everyone's gonna go, holy shit! Like I think this is a sales tactic, and we talked about it prior to the Stipe fight, and I'm going to toot my own horn here. When P was asked about the Tom Aspinall fight leading up to the Stipe fight, I mentioned this all the time because I mean it was so obvious to me, and I thought it was such a great Jon Jones moment of Tom Aspinall isn't happening, Tom Aspinall isn't happening, Tom Aspinall isn't happening. He beats Stipe. All right, maybe we'll give you the fight that you guys all want. And everyone went crazy, like, oh my God, he's hinting at this Tom Aspinall fight. And it was such a great moment for a sales tactic for Jon Jones, for Dana White, for the UFC. I wouldn't be surprised if Jon Jones and Dana White, because I know that they're buddy, sat down and they're like, hey, deny this, deny this, deny this, deny this. All right, give them a little bit to get excited about. And then when it finally comes out, when Dana White is at a press conference after, a big UFC event, 310, 11, 12, whatever one it is, and like, hey, everybody, you guys are going to get the fight you want. Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones next month or in 2 months or whenever the date is. And everyone's going to lose their shit. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, this is going to be the greatest. Instead of, hey, if he beats if he beats Stipe, he is going to fight Jon Jones. It's going to lose that luster. It's going to lose that. It's going to lose that excitement piece for a lot of people. But I think this is a sales tactic. I think Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones is going to happen in 2025. I think they're just building it, and they're trying to find the correct ways to build it before they officially announce it.
Okay, so now I was talking to my student about this. If this does happen, let's say after 311, I'm just making this up, right? 311's happening theoretically with Islam versus Arman. It's supposed to happen in LA. If at that post-fight presser, Dana White announces it, hey guys, we announced it. Jon Jones came away with almost no injuries. He's ready to go. We're going to do this in April of 2025. All right. What do you think this fight's going to do numbers wise? Because it's going to be one of the biggest fights in the history of the UFC. But we were trying to figure out, like, all right, is it going to even come close to Conor Khabib? Is it going to, is there even a chance that it can, is it going to be over 1 million pay-per-view buys? Like, what do you think is going to be the magnitude given all this back and forth and all this nonsense?
It really just depends on who's a big Jon Jones fan. Do I think it's going to be this crazy fight that I'd be more excited about than anything? No, I mean, I'm not a huge Jon Jones fan, and I'm not a super fan of the heavyweight division. I think it's the worst division in the UFC. I think it's all watered down. Like I've said before, all the real heavyweight athletes are in the NBA. They're in the NFL. So you get these watered down athletes. And again, Jon Jones is that NBA, NFL athlete, just like his brother. That's why he has so much success in the UFC and has continued success because this guy he's an athlete amongst. He's a bigger athlete than any heavyweight in the UFC. Like I said, any real heavyweight is playing for the Dallas Cowboys, making 100 million a year. Any real athletes playing for the LA, like an NBA team, like making real money. So I really feel like the heavyweight division is really watered down. And Tom Aspinall, although he's a super athlete, he's not he couldn't go play in the NBA. He couldn't go play in the NFL because he's not that athletic. He's super tough. Now, from an excitement, I mean, I think it's going to do fine, but how can you compare this build up to Conor McGregor and Habib, man? We're talking about a guy that threw a dolly through a window, that talked trash on his family. Like Conor, no, I don't think anybody can ever compare to the buildups of Conor McGregor in his prime. Excuse me, I keep burping. I don't think anybody compared to the Conor McGregor buildups in his prime because he was so outlandish. And Jon Jones nor Tom are going to have so much more respect for each other in this buildup. They might talk a little trash at the presser, but remember, for me, I come from an old school pro wrestling fan. Like I want to see these big buildups, and I just don't think Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, besides the excitement level of the fight of finally Jon Jones is going to fight Tom Aspinall, I don't see how they're going to build this fight other than that.
Okay, so let me throw out. So I think, sadly, I think I probably agree with you that it's not going to beat Khabib Conor because that was sort of like a unicorn event. That was real rivalry, a real blood feud. They hated each other. They theoretically kind of almost tried to kill Khabib or hurt him, maim him, whatever. With that dolly is insane. But there's a new element that's at play for this fight, which is very interesting. So something that's changed in the landscape of MMA since the Conor Khabib fight is the emergence of all these big MMA YouTubers. Our buddy Jesse on Fire, MMA Guru, though, is the big one in particular. We have a lot of these guys that have come onto the scene that are getting tremendous fan bases. Now, I've argued this before, or I've thrown this out there before. One of the reasons why Jon Jones has gotten so much hate and so much negativity to the build-up to the Stipe fight, I think it boils down to one guy. I think it boils down to the MMA Guru. He's the one that's put out there over and over, and he's got almost like 250,000 subscribers of like loyal fans. I'm a fan of his, but I'm not one of his like hardcore. I'll buy into whatever you say, MMA Guru type thing. But like, because I disagree with a lot of the things he said about Jon Jones, but he has just galvanized the crowd against Jon Jones for a number of things, some of them nonsensical, but like, really gone after his personal life, gone after all these things and just turned people against Jon Jones. And this might all be a weird blessing in disguise. I know MMA Guru didn't want this. He was trying to turn everybody against him. But what's happened is that Jon Jones has become incredibly disliked in the world of mixed martial arts, which is kind of a shame. But now I'm realizing he can use all of this negativity. He can use all this hate. People are coming after him for his personal life. They're saying he's ducking Tom. They're saying he wants easy fights. They're trying to take away his legacy. They're even now going back and having revisionist history and saying, okay, fine. Like, we can say the Dominic Reyes fight, that was really close. Maybe he lost that. But I always say, when people are like, Jon Jones isn't that good, he lost to Dominic Reyes. I'm like, okay, fine, he lost to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes is really good. So what if he did lose to him? Does that destroy his legacy? No, stop being dumb. Like, fine, he would have one more loss. Big deal. Like, it's so stupid. But anyways, with all these people coming at him, and what's up, Tehran? That MMA Guru is going to be going bananas. Because he not only does he hate Jon Jones, he loves Tom Aspinall. He's friends with Tom Aspinall. He interviews him. So he's going to be going crazy, making a huge campaign for Tom Aspinall. And Jon Jones is a very underrated trash talker. He's an amazing trash talker. All the buildup with DC and everything was amazing. I think he can make this into something big. Will it do Khabib numbers and Conor numbers where it was like 2.1 million for something insane? And especially with everybody stealing pay-per-views nowadays, I don't know. But I think this could be a really big buildup. I think it could easily beat 1 million if Jon Jones plays it right, which he will, because he's super smart. Jon Jones is incredibly cerebral. So I think this
Well,
is going to be
and he
deep.
has Dana White behind him. Like, even if, let's say Jon Jones isn't smart, let's say, he is, but let's pretend he's not. He has Dana White right there in his back pocket, can tell him and orchestrate this whole thing. Dana White's been around the UFC, the original. I mean, he's been around since the late '80s, early '90s. Like, he has seen and he's made fighters, and he's made fighters, and he's crushed careers. This guy knows the ins and outs of the business and how to get this business. Let's pretend Jon Jones isn't smart, which he is. He has Dana White there just to orchestrate this whole thing and walk him in his hand of how to make this the biggest pay-per-view sell in the organization.
And even, by the way, Jon Jones even tried to create a little bit of beef on his own, by the way, with Stipe. That was just like, it was crazy, but it kind of got a little heat. I mean, everybody was like, that was forced, whatever. But this is real. Jon Jones has already said he's annoyed and aggravated with Tom. Okay, see, the more I'm talking about, the more I'm getting excited about it.
Sure.
There's one thing though about this fight. One thing. I do not want to see Jon Jones lose. I do not want that to happen. I would be very, very disappointed and unhappy if that happens, because I just feel it would just leave a bad feeling for me. I feel like Jon Jones has earned to walk away with this great record intact. And I think people are sort of bullying him into this fight. I think Jon Jones is going to win, though. And I think he's going to go up and he's going to have this crazy thing. They're going to go up, they're going to build it up to this massive thing, and then he wins, and then he retires. Bro, that will be insane. That will be the greatest. I mean, oh yeah, Toron says Jones, he thinks Jones will beat Aspinall as well. Hell yeah, let's go, Toron. Dude, if he beats Aspinall after all the crap that people put him through, every MMA guru, all these guys, they've all challenged his legacy, talked all the smack about how terrible, like, oh, his wins weren't really that good. And you really lost to this guy, and you really lost to that guy, and just picking everything apart, doing all this nonsense. And then at the same time, putting Tom Aspinall on this amazing platform and pedestal, being like, Tom is the guy. He's the best heavyweight we've ever seen. He's going to be the most dominant. He's going to be incredible. And then he goes out, we have this huge buildup, and he beats Tom Aspinall and just walks off into the sunset. Holy smokes. This is what dreams are made of. This is what inspirational stories are all about. And say what you will about Jon Jones and the mistakes he's made, but at least he owns up to them. He talks about them, and he's trying to do the right thing. And I will say I am a fan of Jon Jones. I'm not afraid to say it. And I do think he's trying to do the right thing. And for people to just constantly beat up on him about mistakes he's made in the past, when, as far as I can tell, he's trying not to make those mistakes anymore. He's still with his feet. I mean, look, we don't know, right? But like, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to be a good guy. And I believe it. And let's stop all this nonsense. And again, just like we talked about the Nikita Hans trial, where we don't know what's in her mind. We don't know how a person should behave under these extreme, moments of duress and stress. Like, let's give Jon Jones that same leniency and say, like, look, we don't know what it's like to have all this pressure and all these things going on. And like, yeah, I'm sure he's made a ton of mistakes, even that we haven't even seen. But it does appear like he's trying to come back and do the right thing. So, anyways, I'm a fan. I can't wait, and I hope that I hope it happens in the way that I've described. Let's put it like that. I will be sad if Jon Jones fights Tom Aspinall and loses. But let's say he goes out and he fights him and he wins. Oh my God. That'd be the best thing that I've seen maybe in all of MMA, perhaps. I think it might be the greatest thing I've seen in all of MMA. Okay, let me let me get some comments from Taranan, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. No matter what you do in the future, people will always bring up your past. Yeah, but then there comes a point. There comes a point when people stop. Look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is a convicted rape R word, and he went to prison, came back, he paid his dues. People don't really bring it up that much anymore. People have forgiven him. I think there can come a point where you can get over that hump and just be beloved. I think Jon Jones is almost there.
I think a big thing with Mike Tyson turning around from his former lifestyle is he's a big advocate of hallucinogens and DMT, and he talked about watched a Tyson interview talking about his DMT experience, and he said after his DMT and hallucinogen experience, his whole thought process changed. And I saw a video yesterday of it was fucking so emotional to me because it's only a 30-second video, but they had all his belts on a table and he's being interviewed, and he looks at the interviewer is like, so like, this is your legacy, like what does this all mean to you? And he goes, this means nothing to me, this is all trash, like all these belts are trash, they literally mean nothing in the whole grand scheme of the world. He goes, you could throw these in the trash. I couldn't care less. You know, what matters in life is your family and your kids and this and that. And he goes, this means absolutely nothing to me. When I was a young, hungry fighter, like, yeah, this was everything. But now that I've matured and I've realized and I've had the sense after my hallucinogen experience, this literally means absolutely nothing to me. And if you have these or not, if you have these and you have a miserable family life, you know, that means you're a miserable person. And I was like, holy shit, like he's so right. Like we're talking about Mike Tyson. This guy's been worth hundreds of millions. He's been at the highest high, he's been at the lowest low. Now he's back to, you know, being at a high after winning 20 million. And for him to come out and just be genuine and authentic and say to not only to me, but to upcoming fighters in the world, like these championships literally at the end of the day don't mean anything. And I was really blown away by that.
I think there's a quote from Jim Carrey along the same lines. He's like, I wish everybody had a chance to watch something like this, to watch all their dreams come true, because then they would realize that they had the wrong dreams. It's essentially the same idea. I think when we talk about Mike Tyson and these experiences he's had, he's you know, I feel like I've been having a spiritual awakening the last year as well. I think he's coming to this conclusion of like, wait a minute, what is this existence really on this planet? What is it? Is it all about what we achieve and accomplish here? Or is it really about the spiritual growth that we get to experience, and the trials and tribulations, the negative and the positives? Is like, how are we growing and evolving from this on a spiritual level? And I think he's come to that realization that it's like, yeah, obviously everything in this life, you're stupid if you don't realize this, but everybody does. Maybe we just don't want to admit it. Everything in that we accumulate or amass in this life, we have to let go. Like, come on. It's just obvious. So the belts, the money, like houses, all these things, yeah, obviously they don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. They're just here while we're here experiencing life on this planet. So why would legacy matter either? Why do we care so much to have our name ring out and have statues of us? Because after that we pass on and we move on to the next level, the next dimension of existence. And it's what's the purpose of these relics? Like, they're completely meaningless. So I think Mike Tyson is really getting in touch with the true nature of reality. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but another point that Western Mass Climber brought up is, he said Tyson did his time in prison, Jones does not. I don't think that's going to be the defining difference that's going to make people never come around on Jon Jones. I think people will come around on him eventually. By the way, he's had to endure a lot of hatred, you know, a lot of fire in the public that I think Tyson didn't have to endure. I mean, like I said, these MMA YouTubers are calling him gay. It just completely unfounded stuff, and like people are believing it. It's insanity. You know, I think he's had to endure a lot. I think one day when Jon Jones reflects on everything he's been through and had to go through and whatnot, I think it's probably been pretty horrendous. I think people are going to come around, and I think this is going to be his redemption arc. Beat Tom Aspinall. Actually, even if he loses to Tom Aspinall, I think I think that could be not a terrible ending, and I think people will come around and give him props just for taking the fight and doing what he said he would do. So, Tehran says, why do people care so much John's past? What is it to them? Why is it about? Agreed. But I think it comes down to people just wanting to tear down somebody that's doing really well, sadly. What's up, Wes? Toronto. Okay, they're saying hi to each other. All right, let's move it along to the next topic. Colby Covington fighting Joaquin Buckley in December. What a crazy fight. And talk about ducking. This is the real duck. He's ducking Ian Gary left and right, but I guess at least to his credit, he did take Joaquin Buckley. I'm pretty sure the UFC probably twisted his arm pretty aggressively to take this fight, because it's not any of the fights that he wanted. He wanted all lightweights. He wanted Paddy Pimblett, of all people. Dustin Poirier. I think the UFC was like, stop. This is ridiculous. You're either fighting Joaquin or Ian, or you're getting cut. That's my guess. I could be wrong. But he's fighting Joaquin Buckley, and I feel like a lot of the conversation has been, oh my God, he's going to fight Joaquin Buckley. And I think people are assuming Colby's going to lose because he's sort of on the older side of his 30s. You know, I think he's 36, 37, though he does lead a pretty clean life. But we've never really talked about what might happen if Colby wins. Justin, I'm going to throw this out to you. I haven't even prepped you for this. What if Colby wins?
I mean, I don't want him to win, but if he wins, it's a gift for us because he has to fight somebody tougher. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like he can't turn down like Joaquin is a super athlete, very explosive, very strong, has great wrestling defense. I think he's going to go in there, and I think he's going to finish Colby. I think Joaquin's going to be a lot stronger than him. I think he's going to be bigger than him. But if he does go in there and somehow grind off some boring decision, because that's what Colby Covington does, he doesn't finish fighters. He just lays on them, and that's why I hate. And I just hate this trash talk. It's so inauthentic. But if he does win, I mean, we got to look at the good in this. Is if he does win, he can't duck anybody anymore. But what if he does this? What if he wins and retires
Oh
in the
no,
cage?
no! Don't say that. Don't
What
say
if he
that.
wins in a cage? He'd be like, you know what? I'm sick of Ian Gary ducking me. I'm sick of Shavkat ducking me. You know what? I'm done with the UFC and I'm retiring, and takes his gloves off.
Oh my God, that would break my brain if that happened. I would be
How
so mad. I
crazy
think
would that be?
everybody would be furious. Okay. I don't want Kobe to win now. I would implode if that happened.
I mean, if you're Colby Covington and you can't beat anybody else, why not go in
Yeah.
there, beat Joaquin Buckley, who's tough, but he's not Ian Gary, and he's not Shavkat, and he's not Kamaru Usman, and he's not anybody in the top 5 or top 10. I don't know what he's ranked, but I don't think that he's a top 5 or a top 8 or even top 10 fighter. Like, I feel like this is the UFC. Excuse me.
Mhm.
This is the UFC gifting him with an up and comer, and I don't think Colby can beat anybody. I don't even think he can beat Joaquin. So it'd be smart if he gets in there and, oh, excuse me, man, if he gets in there and beats this guy that everyone thinks he's going to lose to, and then he talks about how tough he is and how great he is and how Ian Gary's ducking him, and he goes, you know what, I'm done, and then just hangs up because he knows in his head he can't beat anybody. So if he somehow he wins, I mean, that'd be a great way for Colby to solidify his legacy as the cringiest MMA fighter of all time, and the douchiest one too. And I mean, he is right now, but that would really solidify how much of a piece of shit this guy really is, and I wouldn't be surprised.
You know what he could do? Oh my God, this is not at all the direction I thought this was going in. But what he could do, and maybe he's already working on this, is try to transition into the WWE and then like just have some crazy cringy speech like you're talking about. I'm out. I'm gonna fight the real fights. I'm going to the WWE. You guys check me out. I'm gonna be champ in 1 year. Boom, peace. I'm out, and drops the mic. Oh my
I
God.
mean, think about it. I think Colby would do a lot better in the WWE with his cringy mouth. He'd be able to run. He'd have to pull back a little bit. You know, he can't be rated R. You know, he'd have to
Oh
be
yeah.
PG-13. But I mean, he'll make more money and he'll win in the WWE. He's not going to win in the UFC. If he beats Joaquin Buckley, like, that's a gift. And that's the only, like, look at the top 10, look at the top 5. Who can Colby Covington beat? He's that old school, grimy wrestler base that just isn't winning fights anymore. That style just isn't winning fights anymore. And you know, people are like, oh, well, Bilal has the same style. No, Bilal can strike. Bilal has really good striking that he can transition into his wrestling. Colby's striking fucking sucks. Like, I am, if me and Colby had a boxing match, I'm very confident that I could beat Colby Covington, and I'm a lightweight. From a straight striking, could I out wrestle him? No, I can't out wrestle him. Could I out grapple him? Probably not there either. But from a striking standpoint, I think I beat Colby Covington. I think Joaquin Buckley's going to beat him too.
All right. Well, let's see. Now I really want Joaquin Buckley to win. Western Mass Climber asked, does Colby have more fights on this contract? That's a really good question. I don't know. And I wonder if UFC, you know, now that they're under sort of like a shared ownership from WME with WWE, you know, would they make that transition? Would they make it smoother? Would they make Colby fight out his contract to leave? I don't know. You know, and I also don't know. I've heard a lot of rumors of Colby having like financial problems because he's a big like gambler, and I don't know. This is rumors. I don't know, but like he might be in a position where he can't just sit out and wait. Like he's got to take some fights because he's gotten himself into a rough position. But I guess we'll see. And then Tehran says Colby would have been good in the WWE Attitude Era. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Attitude Era, the best era in wrestling. You know, watch the Vince McMahon documentary, guys. Wow. It's called Mr. McMahon. They talk about the Attitude Era, just how crazy it got, man. I remember I was growing up, I was in middle school. Like, I remember always having the remote in my hand in case my parents came downstairs, in case I had to turn the channel because it was so awesome. Like, man, what a fucking incredible attitude, or what an incredible era. And I was very glad to be a part of it.
Right on, right on. Never been a big wrestling fan, but UFC, that's my jam. All right, we got 2 more topics. So we're already over an hour. We have a long show today. So let's get into Petr Yan. I didn't even talk about this on Monday, but he beat Deiveson Figueiredo, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. I think Deiveson Figueiredo was on the short list for the next title shot against Merab. But Petr Yan won, and he won in impressive fashion, I believe a decision, but he still won nonetheless. I want to talk about this because it's more like I don't even know what's going on in this division anymore. It's very confusing in the bantamweight division. Think about it. Sean O'Malley had labrum surgery. He's back training. He announced on his podcast. They're saying that he's going to have a rematch against Merab. I think that's what's happening. Then we've got Umar Nurmagomedov, who's in the UFC, who won the title shot, but now he's got another fight. Let's say he wins. So then he's going to be next. And then now we got Petr Yan having this amazing victory over Deiveson Figueiredo. He theoretically has a claim to the next title shot. We also have Corey Sandhagen. I mean, maybe not, but like Corey Sandhagen's probably he's going to fight one of these guys. But like, I've never seen such a log jam in a division where you could have like really good arguments for 3 different people to have a title shot. How do you think? I just want to get your opinion on this. Like, how do you think this is all going to unfold, or who do you think, from a meritocracy standpoint, has the rightful claim to the next title shot right now?
Man, this is why I'm glad to be on this side of a fan now, or for the UFC. Is I have no clue, man, and this is a really man. What decides what guys next? Because we have so many moving points in this division. It's reminds me a lot of the welterweight division. Like you and I discuss who's going to get the next title fight, what we want to see. Man, this is fuck. I mean, you got Sean O'Malley, you have Petr Yan, you have Merab, you have fuck. I mean, and that's just to name a couple off the top of my head. There's just a lot of moving parts in this division, and I'm very fortunate that I'm not the one deciding who gets the next title shot. And I don't know who deserves the next title shot. There's just too many guys in the division. I don't think Petr Yan should really warrant a title shot just because his late performance hasn't been great. He's lost more fights than he's won. Finally, he got back in the win category with this win. I think he lost his last 2 prior to this.
He won his last one against Song Yadong, but he lost 3 in a row before that.
He lost 3 in a row, so he's 2-3 in his last 5. I mean, as much as I like Petr Yan, I'm a huge fan of Petr Yan. I love his style. I love his tenacity. But I just don't think being 2-3 in your last 5 can warrant a title shot.
Yeah, and I think also from the perspective of the UFC, it's like Sean O'Malley. He's still young, but he's 30. So you want to get him in there if you can, any excuse possible to get him in there and to see if he can get back in that title position, or, as a title contender, and maybe win that belt back and have a couple more defenses. So I would imagine just the smart business move, which it appears is what's happening. They're just going to give him an immediate rematch. And then we also have, so interesting with Umar Nurmagomedov. Hold on, let me double check who he's fighting again. I forgot.
Oh yeah, and Umar, of course, like he's undefeated right now. He goes in there and wins again. Like, dude, that's who gets the next title fight. Here's the thing, like with Merab and Umar, like it's going to be a wrestling match, and I think that's why the UFC's kind of like put Umar next, or Umar with another matchup. What is his record? I know he has an incredible record right now.
I'm on his page right now. He's 18-0, which is insane.
I mean, that's insane, but it's just going to be, it's going to be a wrestling and grappler's delight matchup, which right now I think the UFC is trying to stay away from.
Yeah, his next fight is, I thought they scheduled a fight for him, but I can't remember. Hold on, let me see this. Oh yeah. He's fighting Song Yadong.
Like, why though? See, that's the thing. Like, Petr Yan already beat him. Why are they putting this 19-0 guy up against Song Yadong? I'm not saying Song's not tough, but again, coming off a loss to Petr Yan, now they're going to throw him again against a guy that's 18-0. Like, I just don't really understand that.
I think Merab refused to fight him.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, well, that was happening constantly, and every time he'd bring it up, he's like, "No, he doesn't deserve it. I don't want to fight. He hasn't earned it yet." Like, you know what I mean? And even they brought it up right after he beat Sean O'Malley. He's like, "I don't want to talk about Umar." Like, you know what I mean? So I think he's been pushing it off, and then maybe it's a combination of things. He doesn't want to fight him, and then the UFC wants to give Sean O'Malley one more shot, and I maybe also too because maybe they believe Umar's a much tougher matchup for Sean O'Malley. So hey, let's get Sean O'Malley. Let's give him one more shot. He almost beat Merab. Let's say if he gets the title back, and then if he's got to fight Umar eventually, fine. Then he fights Umar and may the best man win. But I could see him doing something like that. All right. Well, anyways, that is the bantamweight division. As cluttered as it is, as crazy as it is one of the best divisions in the UFC right now, in my opinion. So really, really fun division. Let's hope Sean O'Malley does come back because I would love to see him. We're a fan of Sean O'Malley, OG from Fusion Fight League. We got to, or you've met him a bunch of times, but
Oh, yeah.
I would say got to meet him. We didn't like sit down and chat, but it was super cool just being around him. He fist bumped me. I'll take that as a meeting. But anyways, yeah, Sean O'Malley, love to see him get back in there.
Hey,
And
update. I got a little update. So I'm actually going to be cornering against Sean O'Malley here January 17th. So yeah, Ryan, Fusion Matchmaker, asked me for a really tough 170 pounder. I have a relatively tough 170 pounder. And so yeah, it'll be me versus Tim Welch and Sean O'Malley. And you know what? If I go in there and my guy loses, I might have to slap both of them and come out of get in the Fusion cage and see what I can do with these guys.
all right, well, let's see what happens. Although we're going to talk about this last fight matchup that was just announced. Tehran says that Umar should be next for a title shot. So yeah, after Song Yadong, I think people thought he should be already, but yeah, we'll see what happens after that fight against Song Yadong. All right, last topic. Your boy Jamahal Hill, he's back in the mix against Jiri Prochazka. What an amazing matchup, rematch, I believe. Wait, let me double check. Or no, or did Jiri vacate? I can't remember. Hold on one second. Let me look at Jamal's record. I should have remembered this. 1 second.
I think this is his first fight back from fighting for the belt.
Yeah. Jamal. Oh, you mean after? Yeah, this is Jamal's first fight after losing to Alex Bajeda. Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, yeah, no, he's never fought Jiri. It's not a rematch, but like if I remember correctly, Jiri was champ. Jiri got injured and had to vacate the title, and then Jamahal Hill fought for the vacated title and won, or something like that. Hold on, let me double. Or no, maybe it's a little bit longer than that. Jiri vacated, and then like Glover won the belt, and then Jamahal Hill beat Glover, something like that.
Okay.
Does that sound about right? Anyways,
Something like
look,
that. Yeah.
this is a great matchup because these two light heavyweights, they're both former champs and they've never fought each other. They kind of like missed each other in the timeline. So I think it's pretty cool. But I have heard a lot of people give their predictions on this fight. Just, I know you're boys with Jamal, but like, what are your thoughts on the matchup and who do you think's going to have a greater likelihood of winning?
Yeah, Striker's delight, man. Both of these guys are going to come in banging. I can't not go with my guy Jamahal Hill. Jiri, I think he's an incredible fighter, but I think he has some weird like pre-fight rituals that I don't really agree with. And I don't know, I don't know, man. Like you'd have to look into it, but I've just heard some weird shit about how he does to get ready mentally, and I think some of that stuff is going to hurt him long term. I'm sure you would be able to dive into some of the things he does before his fight a little more than I will be able to. But doesn't he like go into? I can't remember. Like he goes in, like he doesn't eat for X amount of time, or like I can't remember the exact rituals. But he's very like spiritual, and he does a lot of these spiritual rituals that I don't think that they are good for when you're fighting the best fighters in the world. And I know he thinks they're great, but I don't. I think it's going to hurt him long term doing these things. And I think Jamal's just going to be more focused.
So the things that you're talking about, yeah, I remember he did this before his Alex Bajeda fight. He went into a cabin and like no food is probably okay, potentially depending on your training, but like he also drank no water. That's what I heard. So that's very bad for you, and that can be dangerous. But again, maybe he's trying to get in touch with some higher, his spiritual self. I don't know. And by the way, Western Mass Climber did correct or did shed some light on this. Jamal fought Glover for the vacant title. Yeah, that's what I remembered. But Glover didn't. I'm just very confused because I know Glover was the champ. So he did win the belt and then he lost to Jamahal Hill. But anyways, all right. So Tehran says I think Hill gets he gets Jiri out of there. And that's what I've been hearing from people, because you have Jamahal Hill being a very classic, like orthodox striker. He's got really good basic clean techniques, whereas Jiri is very unorthodox, very crazy, kind of like a Dricus Duplessis type of guy, right? Trying to figure him out might be tricky, but I don't know. I tend to believe that the more conventional, like good fundamentals and foundation. I'm not a fighter, by the way. You can speak better to this than I can, but I tend to believe, even when it was Rakic against Jiri Prochazka, I thought Rakic was going to win. Rakic looked way better than Jiri, but Jiri just wouldn't stop coming and kept going forward, and then eventually got the win. But to me, it looked like Rakic in that first round was definitely going to win. I feel like it's going to be something similar. I think Jamahal Hill is going to come out on top. What do you think? about
Yeah, I
that
think
take.
Jamahal Hill's gonna. Yeah, I agree, and I think Jamahal Hill, his fundamentals are too good, and like and that's the one thing that Jamal doesn't get enough credit for is his fundamentals, man. This guy, and not to mention, he can watch film, and he is very smart. He has an incredible team behind him that he can watch film and pick up bad habits. And someone like Yuri, who's
Mhm.
very, what's the right word for it? Very, I don't know, some people might call unpredictable. With that unpredictability can open him up, and I think Jamal Hill will be focused and again watching his film that he's going to find openings that Yuri's going to give him. He's going to take full advantage of them.
Well, it's going to be an amazing fight no matter what goes down. So super excited about that one. And that's all we got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for joining. And thank you for the continued support. As I mentioned before, we're up to 481 subscribers, almost at 500. That's going to be a big milestone for us because at that point, we're going to have some new features on YouTube unlocked. So it's super cool. And we've been loving it. But more important than anything, we've been loving the show and we've been loving the support from all you guys. So to people like Tehran, Western Mass Climber, Celine, obviously, and many more who've been kind of part of our consistent audience. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. You guys make this a ton of fun for us, so we really appreciate it. And again, let us know if there's anything else that you want to hear about or want us to discuss on the show. We'll be happy to do that. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you on Friday. Take it easy.